Good Saturday morning to everybody, and welcome to Legal Notes with Charter Oak Law Group's Mary Ann Sharon and Ned Barron. I'm Gary Byron. It's kind of a sad question before I go into today's topic, but I mean, during COVID, did you see more people than years previous? Like, do you have stats of people that you saw pre-COVID and then people that you would see during COVID? Only because I think people start thinking of their own mortality during times of pandemic. Mm-hmm. So I just thought I'd ask you that question.
So initially, when everything shut down, I mean, it was really quiet, right? Sure. And I think it was quiet for everybody. Yeah. And
maybe for like a month.
And then, so after that, the calls didn't stop.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, people, when they're so afraid, so you were right, you're afraid of dying because there was so much out there about how awful this virus was and that it was killing people. Then we were getting calls for family members who were already in nursing homes, and then the nursing homes had like their own pandemics. You know what I mean?
Right,
it was spreading. Yeah. Can they get their family member out? Somebody was sick. Do they have to go? You know, you can't even bring your parent to the hospital. I mean, so we were getting a lot of, and it hasn't stopped. It hasn't stopped. We've been really busy.
I'm glad to hear you're very busy. Mm-hmm. But I guess it makes sense because when people are faced with the end, whether they're going through it right now, presently, or they're thinking about their future, and we're all going to have an end someday, this show is thought-provoking where it allows people the opportunity to think about, there's certain areas or certain people I don't want my money going towards or my belongings going towards. And I really want it to be my end of life, caregiving and you want it a certain way, and you'd rather make those decisions in more lucid times.
I mean, so many people, when they talk to us, and Ned and I ask, I'll call them probing questions, but ask questions, they generally say, oh, I never thought of that. Or, oh, yeah, I need to think of that. And those are the type of things that we try to elicit.
Well, that happens to me as I'm talking to you guys every week. But it's true.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that when we have a potential client contact us about estate planning is that we send them a questionnaire that we ask them to fill out. And one of the purposes is to get information from them. But the other thing is to start, say we have a husband and a wife or just anybody, to start thinking about some questions. Who do you want to receive your assets at your death? Do you want there to be any distribution at the death of the first spouse? Do you want the surviving spouse to have full control over the assets? Is there any family member that you want to make sure never receives anything from you at your death? So these are all, and there's medical questions.
So many other things. Right. It just gets them thinking about, what if my husband, spends all the money at Hooters? And the kids end up not getting it.
That's not one of our questions. I want everyone to know.
But they think about it like, what if my wife shacks up with the pool boy? Right?
You got to have wings for the game, right? Wow. They really ask those kind of questions.
No, but it's that fear that people have is like, my God, if I die, I want to make sure the kids get it. Do I trust my husband? And let me tell you, we can tell. They're laughing at me, everybody.
I don't even know where that thought even came from. I'm trying to figure that out.
But it has to do with trust. And what do you think is going to happen? Like, I have to tell you, people, I have get into these conversations with couples and they look at each other and they're like, oh yeah, well, what if he spends all the money?
Yeah.
Well, when I'm gone, what if there's someone?
Question.
What if there's someone who replaces me and gets all the money? I don't want that woman getting my money that I worked hard for.
Right.
I don't want that man getting all the money that I worked hard for.
And what if he remarries and then passes away, theoretically, your belongings or maybe your family heirlooms are now hers, you know?
So
she was
those
nothing to you.
So all that stuff happens, and so it makes people think about, you know,
or even your children. If you hand things down to your children and your children get divorced, and again, you could theoretically, they could be in the hands of your divorced in-law.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. If it was a jointly owned property and things like that. So those are the those are the type of things we get people to think and to see what resonates with them. And
I think the important thing is that if you do have those concerns, we have solutions, right? So that's part of our job is to
don't own a pool.
Don't hire a pool boy. The pool girl, on the other hand, is just fine.
Oh, I have to suffer through, everyone. Okay.
You started this. You opened that whole door, Marianne. I've got a key question that I think is probably on a lot of people's minds, whether they want to admit it or not. Mm-hmm. A lot of people wonder, what is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid?
Yeah. Actually, this is really, really important. It's not as interesting as the pool boy stuff, right? But, Medicare and Medicaid are two very different programs, and they mean an awful lot to people, particularly as we age. So Medicare is health insurance, right? So we turn 65 and you get this little letter from the government saying 3 months before you turn 65. And it says, hey, now you qualify for Medicare, you get to sign up. And if you don't sign up by the time you turn 65, and you then later decide, like maybe you're still working and you think, well, I have way better health insurance than what Medicare is going to offer me, and you don't sign up, and then you retire and you decide you want to sign up, you get penalized quite heavily. Your premiums go up. So there's a huge amount of incentive to switch people over to Medicare. And there's all different types of plans. There's A, B, C, D that address hospital care, regular health insurance, prescription care, things like that. If you're disabled, like if you have if you are on SSD or SSI, which is Social Security Disability, you can pick up Medicare within 2 years of your notice of decision. So Medicare is health insurance, and for people as we age, it becomes more important, obviously, because private paid health insurance is quite expensive. Mm-hmm. Some people don't have health insurance and they rely on this insurance. Medicaid, do you want to tell people what Medicaid is?
Sure. In a nutshell, Medicaid is a federal program that is administered by the states that provides medical care for people who qualify for it. It's a needs-based program, so there has to be a established need that you do not have the assets or the income to pay for your own medical care yourself. Medicaid also includes, and we also call it Title 19, but Medicaid also includes long-term care. So you're in a nursing home, and the idea from the government standpoint is that you spend all of your assets until you have nothing left but $1,600, and at that point, then you spend your asset paying for your care, and then the federal government and the state will kick in and will then take over paying for your long-term care.
So Medicaid is strictly long-term care.
No. Medicaid also includes health insurance for it's a needs-based thing. So you have to qualify. So you're under 65, so you don't qualify for Medicare. So, but you're, I would say, destitute, and so therefore that's how the state and federal governments provide medical care for you. Medical care insurance for you is through the Medicaid program.
All right, so you have to sell, or no, you have no assets, or only up to $1,600.
Right, so you have to essentially liquidate what you have
to pay for your care.
Yep.
I would imagine, though, there's a lot of fraudulent activity going on there where they give something. Well, I'm not selling this, so I'm giving this to you, so it's really mine, but you hold on to it.
Exactly. So
How do you discern what's genuine and what's not
well,
when you're liquidating?
so let's say you've transferred everything to unknown, unidentified family members and friends. Okay. So now you only have $1,600 and you want the government to pay for your care. And it's not just health insurance, it's paying for whatever your care needs are, because they provide you with housing, food. May not be the best food. It may not be housing where you want to live,
right,
but they provide you with those things, and they provide you with the other medical care that you require, right? So you think, this is perfect. I've given my money away to the people I want, and now the government takes care of me. But there's an application, and the application, so Department of Social Services, state of Connecticut, gets involved, and you have to provide what happened in the last 5 years. So there's a look back period of 5 years, and you have to provide all of the activity. It's like, geez, what happened to your house
Right.
and your car and your pension and your 401k, right? So
And your bank accounts, your investment accounts, that they require
It's all gonna be depleted.
5 years of statements, so that they're going to be looking to see if you made any transfer of any asset during that 5-year period.
Right.
And if you did,
you get
big
penalized.
trouble.
So they look at, we have to submit all of the bank accounts, every statement. You have to submit them. And there's somebody whose job it is to look through every statement to see what went out the door. Okay. So it's a great idea to give it away, but you're going to have to do it 5 years earlier. So you have to give it 5 years.
Only if it's documented through paperwork. In other words, your investments, your from your saving. But if you have
Money in a mattress.
right, no, seriously,
I suppose.
or something of value. Mm-hmm. We were talking about family heirlooms earlier, or just jewelry. That could easily be transferable on the down low, so to speak. Right?
Well, as attorneys, we would never advise clients to do that.
No, I'm not. Of
because
course
that-
not. You don't advise it, but that doesn't mean it can't happen.
Well, sure. No, I'm just putting that out there because us having this discussion is in no way for us advocating for that to be done. The regulations, the laws are very specific, and I would never advise a client to do that.
No, and I have to tell you, I don't think I've ever had a client say, "Is it okay if I get rid of my jewelry?" That's not going to count. I think that a lot of people feel that when it comes to things, that most people don't have jewelry pieces that are going to be so significant in value. And a lot of things that we think are heirlooms aren't.
That's a good point.
And our family members don't even want them. It was like his grandma's china.
Yeah, it meant something to her, but not to anybody else.
It's
kind of thing.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual for someone who doesn't have enough money to pay for their own care
to have those type of
a
antiques.
Picasso, or
right. That is true.
It is kind of funny, but it is true too that there typically isn't anything of that kind of value.
But just to kind of get us back to the Medicare versus Medicaid, and the name sounds so familiar that it's really hard for people to understand the difference, is that, so with Medicare, you have to, let's say you fall, you break your hip, you end up in the hospital. All right. Medicare pays for your insurance. It pays for your hospital stay.
Well, as long as you signed up for it.
Yes.
Right. You have to have signed up for it.
All right.
It's not
correct. I'm assuming
Medicaid is like is a safety net. Medicare is a program that you have to apply for.
Right.
If you don't apply for it and you end up in the hospital and you need it, Medicare is not going to step in and pay for your care. You have to already be on the program.
Right. So what I wanted to talk about, Ned, was, this interplay, the interface between the two. So what happens is you have an older person who has selected Medicare and has that as their primary insurance, okay? And they go to the hospital because they broke their hip, and then of course they're not returned home right away because they have to go into a rehab facility for PT, perhaps OT, depending on what happened to them. They could have had a stroke and you need speech therapy and PT and OT and things like that. And under Medicare, you get 100 days a year of covered insurance, right? So the health insurance is going to pay for your stay in the nursing home or the rehab facility. And most people think that they've got the 100 days and it's all covered. The problem is that once you have reached maximum medical improvement, once you have reached a point where somebody who is a staff member at the nursing home says, you're not going to get any better, then you get a notice and you are denied Medicare coverage. And then all of a sudden you have to pay for your stay at the nursing home on your own.
Or be discharged home.
You could be discharged home, but I'm saying if you are required to stay
But
there.
if they have no money, you can't get blood from a stone.
If you have no money, you better file that Title 19 application immediately.
So if you don't enroll when you receive your notice, going back to I think you were talking about that a moment ago,
Yep.
and you enroll later, will you have to pay a late enrollment fee?
Yes.
Well, which is really higher premiums. So Medicare, there is a premium that you pay for the Medicare program. It's so if you timely, meaning within that 3-month period prior to turning age 65, if you sign up for Medicare, then you're going to pay the lowest premium available. However, if you wait, as Marianne was saying before, you decide, I'm still working, I've got great insurance through my company, I'm going to put it off. By putting it off, that means that when you sign up for Medicare down the road, you are going to pay a higher premium than you would have to pay. And this is a lifetime premium.
Yes.
It fluctuates, it'll increase, but the point is that you're going to be behind the 8 ball to start out with, and that's going to continue.
That was my next question. Is this a variable rate? Is this a variable fee, or is it a fixed?
Well, it depends on which Medicare plan you select, okay? Because there are HMO type plans where you can pick what type of services you want based on how much you want to pay for your monthly premium. Then there's what's something called Original Medicare, which provides you with more services, but you can only go to certain doctors, So there's different types of plans. One of the reasons why I had picked this topic and I thought it was so important is because I had clients who recently came and the nursing home sued them. So they came to me to represent them in what's called a prejudgment remedy action, a PJR action. Ned is familiar with these also. The nursing home said, you failed to apply for Title 19. You have to pay for these services on your own. You haven't done anything about it. We're going to attach your home. And we're going to attach whatever assets we can for you to pay this. And they were they were so upset and so confused. And the call when I was speaking to, it was a daughter and a husband, the wife or mother was the one in the nursing home. And they said, we have insurance. We have Medicare. We keep telling them Medicare covers this. And I said, time out. Medicare only covers it if your wife is still benefiting from the care.
There.
If they feel that she's maxed out, then it's private pay. They didn't understand. And I said, then you have to, and so instead of Medicare covering it, Medicaid will cover it, but only if you apply for Medicaid. And they did not understand because to the regular person, Medicare and Medicaid, aren't they the same thing? And they're not the same thing. So, I am defending them in this lawsuit. I know what has to be done. I know that we have to apply for Medicaid. I know that, I have to do a Medicare appeal because I feel that she was discharged too early. A lot of places will, Ned was saying, discharge you right back to home. You're looking good. Go home.
Prematurely.
Or not even you look good, but Medicare is saying they're not going to cover you any further. Do you have the money to pay privately? No. Go home.
Right.
I mean,
that's true.
Right.
You
So
don't.
so that's and that's a really, from a personal standpoint or a moral standpoint, that's really disturbing.
Yes.
Because we've seen, unfortunately, too many times when people have been discharged home,
Yep.
Whether it's from a nursing home or a hospital,
Yeah.
before they're really ready to go home.
And that's called something that's called a safe discharge. I mean, Ned and I have been hired by families, I don't want to say to fight it, but when we feel that, and certainly for our conserved people, Ned, we have had to say, you are not discharging this person. You haven't even taken the bandages off their wounds yet. And we've had to fight to have them stay in a skilled nursing setting longer. Like, you can't discharge them back to home. That's not fair. And it's not fair to assume that, we now have to impoverish this person in order for them to stay in your facility. So both of us we both have circumstances. We've had to go head to head, toe to toe with staff at a skilled nursing facility.
So if Medicare does not cover the expenses of your stay in a skilled nursing facilities, it comes down to Medicaid or you, the private.
There you go.
Private person. And if it's going to be Medicaid, you need to have already enrolled in Medicaid.
You have to apply.
But I thought you said a moment ago that Medicare is for 65 and over, and Medicaid is under 65.
Well, go ahead. Why don't you clarify that?
Well, no, Medicaid it's needs based, so it's not based on age.
Oh, so you could be over
any
age. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And most of
Right.
the time we hear about older people on Medicaid because they're the ones who can no longer support themselves in their home, right? And especially the older generation, they had pensions as opposed to a 401k, right? So they had some of them have great monthly income, but they don't have a pot of money necessarily as an investment to pay for long-term care, right? Nursing homes are an important phone call, people. Nursing homes cost between $14,000 and $18,000 a month. So most people's pensions don't cover that, right? So if you got a pension plus Social Security, most people don't have that income stream to pay that. So you have to have some assets that are going to cover that reserve to help keep you there. Wow. So it can go really, really quickly. But someone's 401k, Ned and I have seen this, can be liquidated in a matter of a few months, because at $14,000, $15,000 a clip, ching, 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 it adds up really fast.
I was right about to say you're going to go through that really, really quick.
Yep.
So let's talk about your role in all of this. You talked about Medicare, Medicaid. You've distinguished between the two.
Yep.
Are you guiding them? Are you helping them make the proper decisions that best suits their specific needs, or?
As attorneys, we don't typically get involved in Medicare
Right.
when somebody, unless someone has a legal issue with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are fantastic people out there who have businesses where they advise people who are about to turn 65 as to based on what's the best choice for them, or even if after 65.
Because there's so many different options for plans,
right,
as to what serves you best. Like, some people have a lot of prescriptions, right? And they have conditions that require them. Let's say you have somebody who has dialysis, needs dialysis, right? And so you want to pick a plan that your doctor is on that treats you, and things like that.
That'll
and that
cover the
covers
medications that you are taking, because there's some plans that pay for certain medications, some that don't.
Yeah.
So
for Medicare, we don't do a lot of advising when it comes to Medicare, other than to tell people, if you have the option, you pick it, right? You pick up Medicare. So,
in either case, in Medicare or Medicaid, does it pick up 100% of the bill, or is there a plan where, we cover 80% and then 20% is the individual?
Well,
like a premium.
Well, there's premiums.
Or copay.
Or a copay, right, or copay. Right.
Right. So original Medicare, so that's I'll say the base plan. That's for hospitalization. There is not a a premium for, okay? But Medicare, after you in a hospital or a skilled nursing facility where I was just talking about where they believe that you are continue to improve, after day 21 days, it goes to 80/20. There is a copay.
Okay, there is.
So, and then, to everything that Ned and I are talking about, there are exceptions to the rule, right? And
there always are.
And I want to say that oftentimes is where, if people are having a problem, they would come to us and say, this was the result. We got a determination that Medicare is stopping coverage, right? Or we now have, our father has to go into a nursing home. We have to do a Medicaid application or Medicaid/Title 19. They're the same thing. And we would assist with doing the application to make sure that, they get the care that they need.
Sure. I'm glad we're discussing this because I think you've clarified a lot and you've answered them. Yeah, no, you did. You've answered the major questions as far as who qualifies for Medicare, how do you qualify for Medicaid, and why getting ahead of it and doing the application for Medicaid is of your best interest, so that it doesn't lapse and you're not paying out of pocket.
Yeah,
yourself. I would imagine those expenses would be.
And it's really, if you're married, for example. Think about it. You're spending all of your money that the two of you have.
Yeah. The marital assets.
The marital assets for that one person's care. And you could impoverish the spouse. So
I'd like to hear more, maybe in the future, about Title 19. Yep. Folks, you have been listening to Legal Notes with Mary Ann Sharon and Ned Barron. Folks, if you have a question that you'd like to have asked, we'd love to answer your question on these very airwaves, maybe as soon as even next week. Simply email legalnotes@charteroaklaw.com. If you'd like to learn more about Charter Oak Law and how Mary Ann and Ned can help you, I would suggest to visit their website. Go there first. It's www.charteroaklaw.com. Once again, charteroaklaw.com. They're located in Bloomfield, Danbury, in Norfolk. You can also give them a call. Area code 860-570-1229. Make an appointment. It's very easy. Maybe they can just answer your question even over the phone. Again, 860-570-1229. For Mary Ann Sharon and Ned Barron, I'm Gary Byron. Until next Saturday, have a good one, everybody. So long.